what do you put around your fruit trees to stop the grass? What kind of mulch?
So when they're young, like if I'm planting seedlings, the thing that I found to be most economical and kind of have the most benefits and things like that has been actually a hemp mat, and they're made right here in Alberta. I'm sure there's other places in the world that make them. The company's called Biocomposites Group, and essentially it's just this hemp fiber which is like woven together at different densities, and they come in these different size sheets, whether they're like 12 inch up to like 24 inch. And I've played around with a bunch of different sizes and densities. And what I found works really well is like, it's called their 12-inch mat. And they come like they're pre-slit kind of halfway through. So you just kind of wrap it around the tree. So a 12-inch mat, it's called a 1500 GSM or grams per square meter. So and I think it's it's a half-inch thick. And they're like 50 cents per mat. And so what I'm doing when I'm planting seedlings is I put one of those mats down for 2 to 3 years, depending on how fast the tree grows. And that just keeps the grass around the base of the tree. And then I just mow alongside, and that's all it needs to get kind of established. And then once it's established, it can outcompete the grass. That's like for planting like thousands of trees. I think it's the most adaptive and cheap and everything like that. However, like in my kind of orchards or like my kind of zone 2 orchards where I've got like larger fruit trees, the like wood chip mulch is really nice, but it's hard to scale that up to when you're planting. I plant 2,000 trees a year, or I have for the last 4 or 5 years, and you can't manually apply wood chip mulch to 2,000 trees although I mean I just also couldn't source that much in my bioregion. It's not a available resource. However, I think who was Versaland? Who was that? Grant Schultz?
Grant Schultz, yeah.
Yeah, I guess he was doing it. He was using a silage bunk feeder to apply wood chip mulch at scale. But again, like even if I have all that technology, but wood chips are rare in my area. I live in the prairies. There's no trees.
Yeah.
So that'd be the other thing, is like figure out what's rare or really available in your area, and economical. I've used straw before as well. The problem with that is it tends to bring in voles, and then you get problems with damage and stuff like that. But the other thing that I found that I think is like, it's one of those things that you do it once and you walk away and it just takes care of itself, is comfrey. I think comfrey around it's one of the few things within like the permaculture literature that actually works. Without some like major caveats. It's like the comfrey has like really deep roots. Like don't plant it in a garden. That's the first thing. That's the one caveat.
I made that mistake.
If it's tilled, it will spread like the dickens, and you'll never like. It takes. I planted like as a nurse crop in my garden because I was going to take cuttings from it, but then we were tilling around it, and it started to like take over most of the garden. And so I was like, to hell with this. I'm just going to dig it out. I thought. I dug like a 3-foot hole in my garden, and like I found like the taproot, and it started going down, and it was as big as my like arm at 3 feet, and like it was still going. So like I had to end up covering it with like tin and like cardboard for like 3 years to like starve it from sunlight, and I eventually did get rid of it. But if you have it around grass where it's not tilled, it doesn't sucker at all. If you get some of the non-seeding varieties. And you basically plant it like around the drip line of your tree, pull out all the grass it's in between it and the tree, and it'll create like a moat that won't let any grass through. And then it self-mulches because it grows up and it gets so big it just falls over, and you don't have to do anything, and it'll create its own mulch. It's a great pollinator plant. It's not thorny, so it's not going to prevent you from picking your berries or things like that. Now, mind you, this is only for like big trees like apples or upper story species like that. And it provides potassium, nitrogen, and a lot of calcium and magnesium and minerals and things like that. It's a dynamic accumulator, And if you get one little root from like a friend or a couple of them, plant like a nursery somewhere where you're like you can pull off of it. And then I just go around and I'll put like, 4 or 5 cuttings around the perimeter of a tree, spaced a few feet apart. And that's what I do kind of for my long-term management for mulch. But for the short term, you really do need to have some kind of a physical barrier, because if you plant comfrey next to a seedling, it'll just take over and kill the plant.
Wow, that's great. That's great advice.